We're excited to have you here as we dive into everything you need to know to launch a successful comics project on Kickstarter. My name is Ivan Contreras, and I'll be your host and moderator today as we dive into this webinar on comics. So this session is tailored specifically for comics creators. Whether you're a seasoned creator or looking to launch your very first project in the comics category, you're in the right place. So today we'll be sharing valuable insights to help you confidently navigate the crowdfunding process. Before we jump in, just a quick code of conduct, ground rules. If you're comfortable, feel free to keep your video on so we can see your faces and reactions, but please remain on mute. And we ask you to be respectful of your fellow attendees and avoid any demeaning, discriminatory, harassing behavior in speech or in the chat. So what to expect? So for today's session, we'll be in two parts. The first part will be a presentation led by our senior outreach lead for comics, Mr. Sam Kusek. And he will walk us through the essentials of running a successful Kickstarter comics campaign. So that will include an overview of the current landscape of comics on Kickstarter, creative reward ideas to engage your backers, strategies for building a passionate community around your project, and then also cover key elements that you should consider to include in your project to maximize its reach. The second part of the session is dedicated to your questions. So we encourage you to participate actively. I've already posted a question in our, like a test question in our chat box. So please be sure to add any questions into this chat section in Zoom. You should see at the bottom of your Zoom toolbar. It should say Q&A. So this will ideally help us organize your questions that we receive and be more effective when we dedicate our Q&A time. So if you see a question that is being asked and you'd like that to be answered in our Q&A, give it an upvote with an emoji, react to it somehow. You can even leave a comment within. And so this will help us prioritize and like flag for us that this is a high interest topic. And we'll do our best to go through as many questions as we can during our Q&A. But of course, you know, we'll have many questions and have limited time. So we want to be able to prioritize this. Our chat box, which I see many of you have been already chatting within. It's great to see everyone excited about this topic. We'll be there as a resource to drop in comments, comments about comics, observations, or any technical issue that you might be having, a link that you want us to reshare or share yourself, share something that resonates with you. And our team will also be dropping in here helpful links throughout the webinar of any resources or projects that are mentioned. So with that, I'll hand it over to my wonderful colleague, Senior Outreach Lead for Comics, Sam Kusek. Let's get started. Take it away, Sam.
Awesome. Thanks, Yvonne. Can everyone hear me okay? Wonderful. I'm going to share my screen then. And let's make sure, can everyone see? It should be a picture of me. All right, cool. Thank you. Sweet. So, hi, everyone. My name is Sam Kusek. As Yvonne said, I'm the Senior Outreach Lead for the comics category here at Kickstarter. If we haven't met or if you haven't read about me, I come from both the retail side and the publishing side of comics. I worked in a number of stores in the Boston area, most notably Comicopia and Comikaze, and then worked for Boom Studios and James Tynan's Tiny Onion. So I have this really interesting blended background. I am also a creator myself. I've used Kickstarter to fund role-playing games. I mostly delve in the tokusatsu space, so this is Henshin, a Sentai RPG, and I recently funded an expansion this year for it, which I'm happy to announce I just finished fulfillment on. So I have the experience of both the business side of things and the creator side of things. So I'm very excited to speak with you all today, very excited to see some familiar faces as well. I've been in the role about 8 months now, and I've really gotten to know a lot of the key players and a lot of interesting parts of Kickstarter. So I'm excited to share the things that I'm passionate about the category, and then learn more about your questions and things that I can further explore. So, as Yvonne said, here's our agenda for my presentation for the day. I won't revisit it just because Yvonne did a great job covering it, but let's take a look at the current landscape of comics on Kickstarter. So I'm happy to announce I wanted to share some numbers because I feel like statistics really just give you all a sense of how the community is doing. And I'm happy to announce that as of this morning, I pulled this project launch number this morning. We're at 3,255 projects launched. I'll share that that is up from last year's number where we ended last year, and we still have, roughly about a month and a half to go. So I'm excited to see that we're continuing to see growth in the category. More and more people are feeling confident that they can bring comics to the platform, either new comics or bring their latest project if they've done other ones. So it's great to see that growth. That's resulted in $41 million pledged towards those projects, and that's across 205,000 backers, which is also up from last year. So we're seeing growth not only in people bringing projects to the platform, but people pledging, people showing interest. So just very excited to be a part of that growing category. Another thing I am excited about is our category, comics, has the highest, two very high rates here at Kickstarter. And I want to share these and give some context to them. We have a 67% success rate. And what that means is when a project completes its funding, 67% of those projects are then successful in fulfilling everything that they said they do. So it's not just launched to funded, it is funded to completion, which is up from 41% is our site average on the site. So we're up, about 26 points higher than the average. And that's just really inspiring, right? It's great to be able to come to a space every day for me as a part of my job to know that people are finding success. They're able to get the things out there. The work that they're doing feels realistic enough to be able to repeat it, which then dovetails into our next statistic, which is we have a 77% repeat creator rate within comics. That is also really exciting. I think we have some folks on here. I saw Brian Polito in the chat. Brian is one of our, I would say, just like super users on the category. He's always churning out something new, something really interesting. It's great to be able to be in a space where people can come and present new ideas and feel like they're building an audience, feel like they're successful, and just be able to create the things that they really want to create. So just wanted to give some context there that things are feeling really good in the comics category. I think we have a really solid foundation for growth. And I'm excited to be able to just help people, continue to produce the best kind of content that they can produce. I also wanted to share some trends in the category that I'm seeing. First, mostly, I'm seeing a lot of new content and higher end collection campaigns for existing properties. This is just really interesting, I think, culturally, right? We're able to see some stories from well-loved properties like Gargoyles and G.I. Joe were two high-performing campaigns that happened this year. I think the interesting thing for the context of this conversation, because these are primarily run by more mainstream publishers and less independent creators or independent publishers, is this brings a lot of new backers to the site, a lot of first-time backers. I'm doing a lot of work this year and in 2025 to find ways to better engage those backers so they stay on the site. I don't want people to come just for these kinds of projects and then leave. I want them to engage with the larger community. But it is an interesting trend to see more of this content come to Kickstarter because I think it's great. Some of these things may not perform as well in the direct market. When I was at Boom Studios, this is a number I like to throw around when I'm out in the world. When I was at Boom Studios, we did a Expanse Dragon Tooth campaign. If you're not familiar with the Expanse, it's a well-loved science fiction property that's a 9-book series. Had a TV show that was 6 seasons. So 3 of those books were never adapted before the show was canceled. Boom started producing comics for some untold content within that space, and that project was funded by 12,000 people. We surveyed that audience, and 50% of that, or 51% of that audience, excuse me, doesn't have an existing relationship with a comic shop. So that's like roughly 6,000 people and some change that wouldn't have found this content otherwise through the direct market that are coming to direct to consumer channels. And I just want to illustrate that audience sizes, the potential for engagement, the potential for people to find their next favorite comic on Kickstarter. I think there's a lot of opportunity here to ride the wave and the rise of audience that these kind of projects bring. The next trend that I'm seeing in the category is campaigns about comics culture, which I think is really interesting. So these are campaigns that are not necessarily like new comics themselves or a collection of older material, but we have films about the making of well-loved comics like The Legend of Kingdom Come. And then we have, this one was really exciting. The Comics Courier is a campaign from Tiffany Babb, who is a journalist who wrote for Popverse for a really long time. Tiffany wanted to start a new comics criticism journal and bring a lot of creators and other people from the industry into it to talk about the industry at large. And that was funded this year. I think it made $16,000, $17,000. It's really great to just be able to see not only great material being produced, but just other aspects in that exploration of the culture coming on Kickstarter. That's something that I personally feel very adamant about and wanting to make sure that we have a space for. So it's just really great to see some successful campaigns in that. The next trend that I'm seeing that I wanted to share is there's more manga campaigns on the platform. I grew up reading a lot of manga. I think we all saw the numbers and the spike of manga's popularity during COVID, and that's still going pretty strong for the most part. But we're seeing more of that on the platform, and it's really exciting to see, people who either have produced stuff in Japan in the comic system that exists over there, bringing stuff over, or I've seen a number of independent creators also just running their own campaigns. I think it's great for us to be able to focus on sort of the global appeal of Kickstarter and bring more and more interesting work to the platform. And selfishly, like I love manga. I enjoy reading things. I enjoy finding new books and artists that I'm not, or mangaka that I'm not already familiar with. So just very exciting to see more of that come over to us. And then lastly, a trend that I'm seeing that I want to focus on and do some more education around, but I think there's a lot of great examples of this already, is a focus on retailer tiers. So if you're not familiar with retailer tiers, we have our creators are able to offer retailers a book or a number of books at a wholesale discount, similar to what retailers would be able to order through a Diamond or a Lunar. It creates the opportunity for like a second life for their books in retail locations. And if you're able to bake some information about your website or the fact that this was funded on Kickstarter into the book, it increases that just like larger appeal and discovery for folks. It allows them to maybe check out Kickstarter and find their next favorite comics project, or just know that there's really interesting comics coming out through Kickstarter. So both this project, The Fables of Earl King Wood, and Knapsack Magazine did a great job illustrating those retailer tiers. I actually found Knapsack Magazine and Floating World Comics here in Portland, Oregon before I knew about it on Kickstarter. And I'm excited that they've been really successful. They're bringing another Knapsack Magazine to the platform, but it's just a really, I think, great way to connect the different pieces of the comics ecosystem, where right now there's still a bit of separation between stores and if they're ordering off of Kickstarter. And I want to encourage people to create retailer tiers and make it easier for them to get their products into other stores, because I think it only benefits everybody in the long run. All right. So moving on, I'm going to take a drink of water before we talk about some creative rewards. So I've got 3 examples here of creative rewards, things that I think are new and interesting that you may want to consider. I realize that what I'm going to suggest may not be the right fit for everybody, right? Depending on your campaign, the size of it, where you're at with your production process, how far into the art production you are. But I think things like drawn on or cameo tiers, like this one that Iron Barge offered, are really interesting. Iron Barge is a great comic about these anthropomorphic animals on a ship. They're taking a long journey. The creator, Megan Carter, was able to offer a tier where she would draw your cat or dog into the book. So you have that point of joy, point of reference. It's always nice to see more of yourself in your life in a comic. And I think she charged about $126 American, $175, limited to 6 people. I've done things like this myself. For Henshin, I've heard tiers for people to be able to create a monster, and so they would submit an idea, and I would have my artists create that monster design and incorporate it into the book, and it would be something that you're creating a way for your audience to participate in the production of your book. I call these participatory rewards. There's some challenge with those where you obviously have to think about how to best engage with your audience so you are keeping everything on your schedule and making sure that you still have that full creative control of your book. But from what I've seen with tiers like this, there's a lot of positive response to it. People want to participate in the production of comics. People want to participate in something that they feel passionate about. And if there's a way for you to do it in a way that makes sense for the production of your book, I would highly encourage you to think about that. All right. This one was also really interesting. This is a reward I saw from John Court on a recent campaign for See You Next Year. If you're not familiar with See You Next Year, it is a very well-known webcomic that John wanted to create a physical release for. So he had a standard offering of here's the PDF, here's a book, here's multiple copies of the book. But one thing that I thought was really interesting is for one of his rewards, he offered brush packs and reference material, right? I think for some of us who are more artists, who are more of the creators, it can be interesting to see, how the sausage is made, so to speak, or how somebody is producing their work, especially if you're really interested just in the look and feel of it. John's a first-time creator, so his audience size was smaller, I think, than average, or smaller than a creator who's been on the platform for a while, but I believe he sold 10 of these brush packs at a $15 value. I think that's really significant. Of a smaller audience, I think he had about 200 people or so. He was able to engage with that smaller subset of artists, offer something that's really interesting, and maybe start a conversation with other artists about process and how you're making books, increasing sort of that community flow, which is something that we'll get into in a little bit. But that's just something I wanted to share that I feel like I don't see very commonly. People don't really share as much about their creative process as much as they do about the product or other existing products. And then lastly, role-playing game supplements. So this example comes from a Lost Company, which is a project that I think ends in 2 or 3 days from Andy Siriano. Andy, if you're on, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. Lost Company is a comic that Andy produced during COVID with some friends that was born out of a shared love of role-playing games. And they produced this comic about dwarves and an adventuring party. But one thing that they think is really cool is they are producing an exclusive set of minis as a part of the campaign with some encounters that come along with the book. The great thing is that the encounters and the ways that they've written the game, it's system agnostic, so it's not written for a specific game, but there's no real reason why you couldn't do something like that, or there's no real reason why somebody couldn't just buy these minis and incorporate them into an existing role-playing game. I just think it's a really fun way to kind of expand the ethos of the comic, right? It's a comic inspired by role-playing games, and you can then sort of take that experience, take that inspiration, and do what you want with it, right? You're giving people the ability to, again, tell their own stories outside of the comic by creating this really great supplemental material. I've seen people do something similar with just writing like D&D 5e supplements, right? There's a lot of information out there about how you can incorporate settings, your setting and the world of your comic into an existing system. And I think those two worlds, from my personal experience and what I've seen, those two worlds overlap quite a bit. So I think this is a really great opportunity if you feel like you have the time and ability to do it. I know there's a lot of game designers who are also interested in maybe just freelancing and writing an adventure based on a comic, and having that as part of their repertoire, having that as part of a Kickstarter campaign. So I just wanted to share that because I feel very passionate about it, and I think there's a lot of really great untapped potential here. All right. So, moving on from creative rewards, let's talk about some tips for building a passionate community. Um, my first piece of advice, and I think many people, based on the audience that I've seen here, already do this, but it's to back other campaigns and see how it all works. I had a conversation with a creator in Malaysia earlier this week. She won an award, the Caliburn Prize, and as part of the reward, she got some dedicated time with me to talk about Kickstarter. And during the conversation, she mentioned that she had never backed a Kickstarter campaign before. And I think backing a campaign is a really great way to see the flow of how it all works, right? So you can see when a project launches, how it performs, how that creator communicates with you, how comments work, how the different tiers are structured, how stretch goals work. So if you haven't done it already, again, I imagine many of you have, I would say back some other campaigns. And to make it easier, I've picked 3 projects out that are running right now that I think you should check out. 2 of which I have pledged myself. I had a bout this weekend where I was like, I should pledge for some more comics on Kickstarter, even though I have a very massive reading list behind me. So Frankenstein Restored from Dark Arts Publishing is a restoration of a Golden Age Frankenstein comic. I think the neat thing about it is that the comic started out telling the more traditional story of Frankenstein, and then I think started to go off the rails and became a little more jokey, where he was like living in suburbia with Wolfman and Dracula, but then it took a hard left turn right back into horror. So this is that sort of just horror approach. 3 volumes. Very excited to dive into that. Next, we have Dean Haspiel's Chest Face. Dean Haspiel has been innovating and working on this really interesting superhero universe. Chest Face is about a person who is mutated against his will. I believe he's a stand-up comedian. It's kind of an homage to The Thing from Marvel, but very excited to see Dean come to the platform. I've been a fan of Dean's work for a while with The Fox and Red Hook. And then we have Sew Buttons from Jonathan Bayliss. Jonathan does these really great autobiographical comics. One thing I'll note about his campaign that I think is really great is that he has tiers where you can get original art and sketches from some other creators. So it's kind of a 1-2 punch of you get a really interesting comic from Jonathan, and then you can get like a sketch from Box Brown as a part of the campaign. So just I didn't want to put all the onus on you guys to find campaigns to check out. I wanted to give you some opportunity and insight into things that I'm seeing that I think are interesting on the platform. All right. So my next tip, and I say this a lot to folks who are getting started or who want to sort of broaden their horizons in terms of how to get further involved in the community, is give your stuff away when it makes sense. And what I mean by this is, or to give an example, when I launched Henshin, we put the initial PDF for this up as a pay what you want PDF. It was, I think, 12 pages of just some regular rules and the playbooks, but we made it available to whomever wanted to get it. And for the most part, we saw people get it for free, but we were able to capture their email information. We did see a couple of people pay for it, which was really nice, and it gave us, that big confidence boost. But it allowed us to start building an audience and get a sense of, are people interested in this? Where are they coming from? What kind of feedback are we getting? Who's paying for it? And like, are those people some people that we want to just have further conversations with? I also say this to people who I also recommend this as a way for people to get to know other creators, right? So if you're backing a campaign or you see somebody's work that you feel is really in line with yours, or you feel like you guys just share similar aesthetics and viewpoints about the comics space, I recommend that you reach out to them directly, either through Kickstarter or if you can find an email or another way to contact them, and just say like, hey, I'm X, I really love your work. I'm a creator myself. You can check my stuff out here and send them a Google Drive link that has a PDF to all of your stuff, or send them a PDF of your most recent work. I think it really says a lot about a creator's confidence and their devotion and passion about their work if they're able to give it away and put it out into the world. If you're, I feel that uh, if you're too precious about it and you hang on to your work, it's not as easy for people to sort of like dive into it and share and be passionate about it. You want to open up the floodgates and allow people to come in and get as excited about your work as you are, and that way you'll be able to. My favorite way to talk about comics or really sell comics is that hand sell, right? Where somebody is so passionate about it, they're able to speak to it, and you can really feel the authentic love and admiration and just like happiness about the comic. I think by giving your stuff away, you create more opportunities for that to happen, and more people will find your stuff naturally because they're hearing about it from friends, they're hearing about it from their local retailer, and it just makes it easier for people to dive in and devote themselves to your work. And then lastly, my tip for building a great community is attend conventions. I'm sure for a lot of people here, it feels like a no-brainer, but you could do them both in person and virtually. I say virtually because there are a number of growing, I think, international conventions that have a strong presence, or there are some local ones. I'm thinking of Ladies Con from Kamikaze is a great one that does a lot of programming through Zoom, if you haven't checked it out already. By attending virtually, I think there's a lot of great ways for you to just dive into panel conversations, learn a lot from other professionals, or hear more about the community. Going in person, again, allows you to share your work with people, have those conversations, discover something that you may not have known about before. But I can't tell you how many times I've gone to a convention and just bumped into somebody that either, excuse me, I've been thinking about talking to or meaning to talk to, or I didn't know that I needed to talk to them, if that makes sense. But you know, I went to Short Run in Seattle a couple of weekends ago, and I've been trying to tie or nail down a time to talk with a art dealer named Sean Watkins. I just ran into him on the floor, and we ended up having this 30-minute conversation. And he was able to connect me with some other people. We talked about some opportunities to work together. So attending conventions is a great way to just get to know people better because you never know what's going to happen. All right. And then lastly, let's talk about some key elements for your campaign. So I've got three things here, like my other recommendations, but my first one, and I may go out of full screen for a moment to show you some examples, is make a campaign video. I think for some folks who have run campaigns for a long time, this feels like a real no-brainer. But we see here at Kickstarter that a campaign video is a real marker of success for campaigns, right? I think it's a great way for you to communicate your ideas, to set a tone for what the campaign is going to feel like, and just to make sure that people are on the same page about what is being offered, what the expectation is. And it's a great way for you to communicate your enthusiasm about it. And a campaign video can feel very daunting. It's a lot of work. I think when people hear about it, they really get in their heads about I need to hire a videographer and I need to just do all of this like planning and storyboarding and plotting and writing a script. And you can certainly do that. I just showing my screen. Can everyone see the window? Sweet. So in my campaigns, I've sort of done both approaches, right? Where I did for the initial Henshin campaign, we hired a videographer to come to my business partner's house and film us talking about the campaign, incorporate some videos, and we had people do a sort of like mock play of the role-playing game, right? So we're communicating in that here's the role-playing game, here's how it flows, here's the information. That was a full day of shooting and required a fair amount of money, but the end product I think really helped us sell and communicate what the product was. And it was a lot of fun to do too, right? It's something I still look back very fondly on. But for the follow-up, I didn't want to go through that whole process. So I just did something on Canva. I used some of the existing assets that I have. Sorry if the sound comes through there. But I used some of the existing assets that I had and just communicated what the book was going to be and the information through a Canva video. It took me about a day and a half to make on Canva, and I was able to export it and then share that not only on this page, but on social media and in my emails. And I think there's just a lot of quick and easy tools that you can use to put together that real vital piece of marketing for your campaign. All right, let's get back to the large version. All right. My next piece of advice for a key element for your campaign is create an update schedule. I see a lot of campaigns that don't post updates, and I think it's something that I know it's something that I want to encourage more people to do. Updates are a great way for you to communicate more about the campaign to your backers. I think it's very easy well, I guess I'll take a step back. The campaign page itself, it can be very easy for people, I think, to overload the campaign page, right? You want to find that right balance of talking about what the project is, what the comic is, show some of the art, but not too much of the art because you still want people to be able to read it. And there's an interesting balance of finding just enough information on the campaign page, right? And I think that dovetails nicely into there is some information that is better suited to having in an update schedule. Maybe it is talking about the process of the book, or you can have a spotlight on a particular artist or a particular character. An update is a great place as you release stretch goals or other aspects of the campaign that you want to use to excite people about it. That's a great place to communicate all of that out. Or maybe you just want to talk about other campaigns you're excited about. That's one thing I love about the Kickstarter community here is that people will back other campaigns and talk about those. And there's just that shared sense of camaraderie around wanting to get your set of backers in front of your friend's set of backers and vice versa. But oftentimes I feel like people don't have a plan or don't have a schedule in place for their campaigns. And campaigns will go on, and you'll see comments from backers asking common questions that could be addressed in an update that you could point them back to. It also helps you just create a paper trail, so to speak, of what you're intending to do when you intend things to come out. So inevitably, if somebody misses something or they are unclear about their expectations, you are able to point back to that update and say, hey, I communicated this in this update back in August. Here are the steps that I need you to follow to fulfill your order. Or it's just a great way to clarify information. So I definitely encourage people to come up with a schedule for updates and just make sure that they have a clear sense of what they want to communicate as a part of their campaign. And then finally, I encourage people to provide a shipping chart. I think shipping information has gotten a lot clearer generally on Kickstarter campaigns. But when I was at Boom, I will just pick a random one. We did a lot of like work on our graphics for the campaign leading up to the campaigns. And one thing that I always found really helpful was having a shipping chart in the body of the campaign page. It's all the way down here. That is broken down by region and broken out by tier. And then you have your estimated shipping costs for that region, for that tier. The reason that I feel adamant about this is I think it's really great to give your backers a holistic sense of what their financial commitment to your campaign is, right? You're asking them here on the page, as if you're not already baking shipping into your estimates, here's what I want you to pledge to buy the product. And then here's what I expect you in a couple of months to be able to provide for the shipping of it. It's an estimation, but at least people are able to run the numbers in their head, and there's less surprises for when that second or when that shipping cost comes and ultimately hits their inbox. They're able to financially, recover from the campaign and make sure that they have enough money. But again, in terms of creating a paper trail and just setting yourself up for success to avoid any issues in the future, creating a shipping chart is a really great way to just make sure that everybody is on the same page about what is expected of them. And you have a system of record to be able to say, I got as close to the estimates as I was able to. Things, we had some disclaimer language here just about the total shipping costs will reflect the total of everything. But you may be charged additional tax based on where you are. We may not also be able to provide VATs or fees, but it's just a way to prepare people for their total financial commitment. All right. So I believe that's all I had for my presentation. So now let's get to your questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sam, for sharing these incredible insights and like tips about launching your comics on Kickstarter. So with that, let's jump into some questions from the chat. Feel free to keep dropping them as we go, and we'll try to get to as many as we can before our time is up. So I'm just going to start with the question that we've had most upvoted and just go through that. So this question, Sam, is from Heather Antos. The question is for folks brand new to crowdfunding with very little or no audience or social media presence, what is the best way to go about gaining eyes to your platform?
So first of all, hi Heather. Thank you for your question. I think the best way to do it, as I indicated in one of my pieces of feedback, is find some creators that you like, reach out to them, and give them a sense of your work. Give your work away for free because you want to build some of that sense of community and some of those advocates that are already on Kickstarter to be able to either ask for that favor later for a shout out, but you're just building some sense of familiarity so people can vouch for you. I would also encourage you to, and this is just a good general piece of advice for everybody here. We plan our promotions 4 to 6 weeks out in advance, and those are our newsletter promotions and some of our social media schedule as well. I would say reach out to us within that time frame. That's 4 to 6 weeks in advance of your launch, because that gives us a better opportunity to know what is coming down the line, and we can put you in those newsletters that'll get some fresh eyes on you. That's to sort of activate the unknown audience members, right? Of getting you in our regular channels gives people the sense to just kind of find you naturally. And we can get that in front of our curatorial team to be able to potentially provide a projects we love tag, which also helps with your promotion as well. Um, uh, Outside of those, yeah, those are my two big pieces of advice: is reach out to some people who are already in the system to have them vouch for you and to see if there's any opportunities where you can get advice from them and better understand how they work in Kickstarter, uh, and get in front of us because we can create some promotional opportunities for you as well. I think those are the two tent poles that I would recommend in terms of getting yourself set up for success, because you'll be able to tap both of those during the campaign run. Um, yeah.
Thanks, Sam. Uh, our next question, we received a lot of buzz from different folks. is around retailer tiers. So a couple questions that I sort of like cascading questions. Do you recommend any best practices for retailer tiers? Any tips for reaching more retailers and distributors in the US and worldwide? And what is the best way or format to do a retailer tier?
So, a retailer tier, my best recommendation is start creating an email list of retailers, either people that you know personally through your time at comic shops. That's something that I'm doing. So just to, I didn't say it in the presentation, but one thing that I'm going to be doing in 2025 is on a monthly basis, I'm planning to start a retailer newsletter. So I will pull projects that have retailer tiers, and I will communicate those out to retailers so they are aware of what is available to them, and they can, similar to what they do with Diamond or Lunar in their catalogs, go through and be able to select what they think would be best in their stores. I think the biggest challenge for retailers right now is there's so much on Kickstarter that it would be somebody's full-time job to just go through the catalog and find what has a retailer tier and determine, hey, this is going to be a good fit for our store. So I'm trying to close that gap by creating a more centralized way to communicate. But I would encourage you to do that as well. I think if you've been in the business for a long time, or you have a local shop that you go to, get their email, try and stay in solid, consistent communication with them as it makes sense when you have something to offer them, and just be clear about what is available to them. In terms of structuring a retailer tier, retailers usually expect 50 to 60% off of the cover price. I think 50 is probably more common. I've done 60 in some cases if you're selling a larger quantity. But I think if you offer 5 copies of your book, each at 50% off the cover price, and then either low shipping or free shipping if you're able to swallow that. That is generally what is attractive to retailers, and is something that is more likely to get them to buy because they'll be able to place it in multiple locations in their store. They'll be able to track, was this an effective purchase for me? And yeah, that's generally what I would recommend for retailer tiers. Yvonne, there were 3 questions. Would you mind repeating the third one? I think I got into the structure and how to communicate them.
Yeah, of course. Um, I think you nailed it, but just one sec here. Yeah, so the 3 questions were what's the best way or format to do retailer tiers? Any tips for reaching more retailers or distributors in the US? And basically any best practices.
Yeah, it's I think don't in terms of incorporating into your campaign, treat it as a regular tier, right? Don't feel like it's a separate add-on or bury it. Sort of build it as part of your overall offering. Um, would be the other thing that I would say. That's what I saw. The 2 examples that I gave, if you take a look at those, and I think we can provide links to those, you'll see that those are baked into just the general campaign offering. So that would be the way that I would recommend it.
Great.
All right.
Thank you so much, Sam. The next question we'll go to is from Cameron Lee. The question is there a higher success rate for comic campaigns that launch with a book already finished versus still being in production and having a longer wait time till the finished book ships? Is there a suggested percentage of the book that should be done before launching? I've launched with finished books and unfinished books, and I'm curious what you see works best.
That's a great question. I don't have a specific success rate difference between the two. I think it's interesting, right? Because the opportunities I see for a finished book is you're able to get it out faster, right? You're able to offer maybe different treatments for a soft cover or a hard cover because you're really focused on production, and just getting your print numbers in order and getting that out. And that allows you, I think the benefit of that is that allows you to dig into that repeat creator rate that we had talked about earlier, where you're able to uh, get a book out more quickly, prove success, and then you can start just like generating and doing more content. The book in production, or the book that's currently being built out, I would recommend, I would say having like 30 to, excuse me, 50% of it done is helpful. I think having enough to show people in terms of like a couple of finished pages is a really great way to just give people a sense of what's coming down the line, what can they expect from their story. But I really like those campaigns because again, there is the opportunity to create like participatory rewards and get people involved in the production or maybe the direction of where the book is going to be going, right? They're helping you build the car as it's running is the term that I've used in a couple of different interests or instances. Um, but I don't think there's a major difference between the two of them. I think both of them still have really strong audiences, and when people believe in a product and are excited about it, they're okay with waiting for that period of that longer period of time, right? And you're able to still sort of give them the benefit, I think, of the book that's in production is you're able to give them some consistent updates about how production is coming along. You're able to tease more about the story or share more about the story as opposed to a finished book might be just a quicker campaign there. So there's a little less engagement. I think both still have viable ways of building your audiences, but I think when a book is being produced, there's more touch points to be able to share more of the creative process, which I think is important to some backers.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Super helpful. We'll go to the next question. We have a time for a couple more. Um, this one is from Viscerat, and he asks, are there any further details on the growth inside the comics category, anthologies, comic books, graphic novels, web comics year over year? Is there any specific or any genre growing more than others?
Um, I don't have specific numbers right now off the top of my head, but I would be happy to if we want to take that down as an action item, Yvonne, I would happy to be able to take that and provide information about those anthologies and webcomics and sort of the more subcategory breakdown to show. I would say, you know, we're seeing a growth. I feel like I'm seeing a lot of horror projects. And maybe it's because we're coming out of October and we had an open call here at Kickstarter called Witch Starter. But I'm seeing a lot of horror comics. I'm seeing a lot of manga, which is more of, you know, a subset, not exactly a specific genre of comics, but the growth of international comics is really powerful. We're also seeing a lot of, frankly, a lot of like not safe for work comics that are growing on the site. I think that category is growing in a really healthy way where there's a lot of projects that are presenting those more adult friendly comics in a really respectful way. You know, we create a space for that on the site here, and we go through a very strong rigorous approval process to make sure that those are above board and are okay to put those out. But we're seeing a growth in that category as well. So yeah, I think horror, manga, and not safe for work are the three trends that I'm seeing growing within the comics category, and I feel good about all of those.
Thanks. Thanks for your thoughts on that, Sam. And folks, you can look out for a follow-up on that. Um, the next question is from Patrick Lugo. This question is, are there best practices for updating or editing one's campaign page over the course of a campaign? So I'm guessing like while it's live, videos of a live stream, special in-person events, copy in preparation for late pledges.
So hi Patrick, nice to hear from you. Um, uh, that is those are really things that I would encourage you to put in your updates, especially I know that you guys did a live stream for your box of tapes campaign. Those kind of activations that have a clear sort of beginning and end date, I would encourage you to put into updates. Same thing with late pledges. You're creating this schedule of events that are leading up to the beginning and the end of your campaign. For campaign pages, like changes to your campaign page, I would really reserve those only for like clarifying information about if somebody has a question about shipping and there's an element of shipping that's unclear, or if you want to, when you release pledges, if you want to put late pledges will be open for X amount of time before the end of the campaign, I think that's great. But all the information that's leading up to the end of the campaign or things that you're getting released, I would encourage you to bake into that update schedule. The campaign page should again, like striking the balance of how much information is enough information is the real trick with campaign pages, because you don't want to overload too much of it and ultimately get away from your core, the core call to action, which is to have people find the pledge, find the tier that works best for them, and secure that pledge. So any of those sort of marketing oriented things, I would encourage you to put into updates, because the backers will get the notification for that. You can then use that link and blast it out into your email or your social media channels. It creates a really great, almost landing page within the campaign page.
Thanks, Sam. And so with that, we'll go to our last question before wrap up. Shipping costs. This question's from Greg. Shipping costs are an increasingly headwind for many campaigns. Any tips? Has Kickstarter considered starting some sort of physical distribution initiative, especially for international orders?
So my tip, my tip for shipping, having just done that myself, is like really do your research in terms of what can different avenues offer. I think I use both Pirate Ship and stamps.com for my fulfillment for the Henshin expansion. But when I was building out shipping costs, I looked at a bunch of different estimates online, was able to average those out, and I came up with a number that worked for me. But I added a 20% bump onto that to account just for changes in the market if things were to really skyrocket, or giving myself the opportunity to just like have a little bit of a buffer to make sure that my funds weren't going to be completely depleted if things were to change. Um, I mean, it's pretty general advice, but just like do your research, take a look, go through based on the countries of, or actually to back up, what I did was I used the geolocation information on my website to take a look at the top 10 countries where people were coming from. I then used that to build my shipping chart out. I got estimates based on those regions, both at USPS and I think UPS, and was able to generate the number that way and gave myself a 20% buffer. I also included money in there for packaging to give a total sense of the cost. So it is not just shipping, but it is the packaging that goes into it. And that would be the way that I would do it. Use as much data as you have available to you to be able to really build a core amount of information out. And then people will feel like you're really set up for success to be able to service them in their regions, or at least they'll be able to make the call of, is virtual right for me? Is physical right for me? Is, the juice really worth the squeeze here?
Yeah. Thanks so much for all that, Sam. Um, and with that, we want to close out. Sam, if you want to go to the next slide and share your details there, as that has been a question that has been on folks' mind. How can we get in touch with you?
But yeah,
Uh,
feel free to shoot me an email at s.kusek, that's Kusek at kickstarter.com. Happy to address questions as they come up. And, with enough planning, we can always make time to get on the phone as well and talk more about the ins and outs of your campaign and how I can best help you.